Rotarians and guests, welcome to the August 12th meeting of the Rotary Club of York. We are the 22nd largest Rotary Club in the world. Leading us today in our song and pledge is Alan Roth, and delivering our invocation is Dave Lovelace. Alan.
Thank you, President Ann. Rotarians, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God, our King. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now turn it over to Dave Lovelace for the invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, the source of all that we have and all we can hope for, assist us to be custodians of the earth in which we dwell, that we might weigh our necessities against the needs of others. Bless the labors of all who work to provide for their own needs, and grant us courage to be generous with what we possess, so that all who live in our communities may have the opportunity to provide for their own basic needs. Strengthen those involved in the Alice Project and bless their endeavors to support those who need assistance amongst the challenges of life. As we continue throughout the world to struggle with the COVID pandemic, have compassion on all who suffer and bless those who provide care and companionship. As members of Rotary, committed to serving others above ourselves, help us always to be mindful and responsive to the needs of others. We pray in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that lovely opening, Alan and Dave. And I think we have some Rotarians that are in great need, and those are our Penn State fans. Yesterday, the Board of Trustees for the Big Ten postponed the fall season, and that includes football, nixing our football season. So amid the coronavirus pandemic, their hopes are to play in the spring. So in 2021, apparently both hope and football will spring eternal. But rest not. I mean, we always have political ads to look forward to in the fall, right? I can hear your virtual groans from where I am. Well, speaking of voting, we have a very interesting congratulations, and that is to Jennifer E. Jones and Rotarian Bobby Simpson. I know that many of you are familiar with fellow Rotarian Bobby, and you will soon become very familiar with Jennifer. Jennifer is a member of the Rotary Club of Windsor-Roseland in Ontario, Canada. She has been nominated to become Rotary International's president for the year 2022-23. A groundbreaking selection that will make her the first woman to hold that office in Rotary's 115-year history. So congratulations to Jennifer. And a little more locally, congratulations to Rotarian Bobby Simpson. Bobby was honored earlier this week in a surprise ceremony recognizing his service of over 40 years to Crispus Attucks and to our community. A sign was unveiled naming the area of South Duke Street and Broadway Avenue in honor of Bobby's service to Crispus Attucks and to the city of York. Fellow Rotarians, York County President Commissioner Julie Wheeler and Bob Pullo were among the dignitaries that heaped praises upon Bobby, including words such as integrity, trust, and respect, and service above self. Bobby, bravo, a well-deserved tribute to your immeasurable impact. Also, speaking of voting, our Rotary Board meets tomorrow morning. Thank you to the board members for your service. And finally, two important announcements. Past President Mike Summers has arranged for us to hear from our congressional candidates. Mike needs your thoughtful, fair questions for the 2 candidates for the 10th Congressional District, featuring Scott Perry and Eugene DePasquale. The candidates will appear on 2 separate Rotary programs, so the questions can be individual or for both. Mike will moderate a conversation with each candidate. The first program is September 2nd, so please mark your calendars and send your questions at your earliest convenience, post haste, to Mike, and his email is on your screens. This is important so the conversation reflects what you want to know about each candidate's view. And also, as always, you can send your program suggestions to past President Mike. And next up, we will hear from Sean Kenny for a charitable grant announcement. Sean.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. Over the past 20 years, the Rotary Club of York's Charitable Grants Committee has awarded over $500,000 to local nonprofits supporting our community's children's as a result of legacy gifts from our club members. You can join us in 2 ways: become a committee member or donating a lasting legacy gift to make a lasting impact. Contact Bert or any of the committee members, including myself, and we can put your time, talents, and funds to use for important long-term gifts. Today's video is from our friends at the York County Food Bank. As we know, they're very busy right now, so we thank them for all that they're doing. This video is from about their York County Food Bank mobile food pantry. They were an award recipient in 2019-2020 grant cycle of our Charitable Grants Committee, and the focus was on youth hunger and homelessness. So here's the video, and enjoy the program.
Hi, my name is Zach Waldemuth. I'm the Director of Programs here at the York County Food Bank, and just wanted to say a big thank you to the Rotary Club for the support that you've provided for our mobile food pantry. Prior to COVID-19, we were in the process of getting our mobile pantry up and running. Things got derailed a little bit with COVID-19 and our response to that. Our bus is in the process of being retrofitted appropriately so that we can get out into communities where there's high food insecurity. We recognize that there are many people who don't necessarily have access to transportation, and so your support of our food pantry, our mobile food pantry, will help us actually go into communities and eliminate that barrier for folks that are food insecure. And that got delayed a little bit, but we do hope to have that bus up and out in communities here before the end of the year. So we're extremely grateful for that. And we've also been very grateful for the opportunity to utilize some of those funds and the flexibility that you've shown us to be able to utilize some of those funds for doing pop-up distributions during COVID-19. And those distributions were highly successful. And again, that allowed us to take the food to the people, right? And especially those that are most vulnerable. So we again want to thank the Rotary Club. Thank you for all your ongoing support, for your flexibility and understanding, especially during these difficult times. You know, we just, again, we just want to say a huge shout out. We know that we could not do this without you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sean, for that spotlight on the importance of the charitable grants in our community. Thank you for your work and your committee's work. Also, we have Rotarians that are helping us now with our business spotlight. And this week is Etzweiler Funeral Homes. This is a 4-generation family-owned small business with 3 locations in East York, Wrightsville, and their newest location in West York. Also, 3 generations of Rotarian York Club, Rotary Club of York members from the Etzweiler family. So thank you for that commitment to our community and to our club. The homes have been operating since 1911. This covered World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, and the polio epidemic. And Ashley has shared that COVID-19 has had a greater impact on their business than all 4 of those historic events have had. Thank you to Ashley for providing that content and for your service to our club as our educational, vocational, and JROTC chair. Thank you. And next we have Courtney up to share our poll with club members.
All right, hello, Anne. So members, you should be able to see the poll launching on your screen. I'm gonna go ahead and read this week's poll question. Would you rather A, explore the stars, B, explore the sea, C, learn about the past, D, learn about the future, or E, discover artifacts and ancient sites? So we're gonna give you 30 seconds starting now to collect your responses. $15 more seconds. Okay, time to close the poll and let me read the response. So it was almost tie for the top, well, it was a tie for the top two. 23% said that they would like to learn about the past. 23% said that they would like to discover artifacts and ancient sites, followed up by 21% exploring the stars. So those were the top 3 answers this week. Thank you everybody for voting.
Thank you, Courtney. And if some of you are a little less ambitious, you may try exploring Rotarian magazine. Those of you that do on a regular basis will know that clip, and that poll came from our Rotarian magazine. Thanks for delivering that, Courtney. Rotarians and guests, today I have the honor of introducing Kristen Rotz to you. Today's speaker is an experienced nonprofit association leader who has advocated for many human service programs throughout her career. She understands how to influence policy in Harrisburg. Kristen Rotz became the president of the United Way of Pennsylvania in October of 2014. She believes United Way is integral in bringing key stakeholders together from every sector, every political philosophy, and every walk of life to help weave the fabric of healthy communities which offer opportunity for all. Kristen has helped us shape changes in state law and regulations for a variety of issues, ranging from how county human services are funded to alternative energy credits, tax assessments for farms and forest lands. As an executive of 2 membership organizations, she led these nonprofits through significant changes that have improved their financial situation and their service to their members. She describes the launch of our statewide ALICE project as one of the most impactful initiatives of her time leading the United Way of Pennsylvania. Kristen grew up in an ALICE household and believes that data is transformative for community impact work and public policy advocacy. Kristen earned a bachelor's degree from Lynchburg College and a Master of Science in Organizational Development and Leadership from Shippensburg University. Rotarians, today we welcome an accomplished statewide leader, an ALICE expert, and an advocate for our neighbors in need, Kristen Rotz.
Thank you, Anne. It's good to be with you all today, and I'm happy to be here to tell you more, help you understand your community better through the lens of the data that we have to offer to York County through the ALICE project. United Way of York County has been one of our local United Way partners that were instrumental in supporting this project, which we launched in June of 2019. And what I tell you today is representative of how we understood the world through data in 2017. We're going to be launching a refreshed report, which will bring that data standard up to 2018, and we intend to maintain this commitment to update data every 2 years. So the ALICE project is here and it's here to stay, and this is the way that we can continuously evaluate how all in our community are doing by economic measures that are often overlooked, and that's really what the power of the ALICE project is all about. So when I say ALICE, it's an acronym, and it stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. You don't have to remember all of those words. They're almost a tongue twister to get them out. The important thing to remember about ALICE is that ALICE constitutes everyone who's working every day. They are earning an income that places them above the official federal poverty level, but they're not yet earning an income which allows them to afford all of the basic essentials for their household. And as we go through this, I'm going to show you what that threshold that we propose has been, how that plays out for York County. I do want to emphasize, as I talk to you today about something called a survival budget, that is those household essentials. It's the bare minimum that a family can survive on to afford all the things they need. There is nothing in that budget that they don't need. And the survival budget is actually not sustainable because these are the people who are one emergency away from poverty. And that emergency might be as simple, relatively simple as a flat tire, or as complex as a medical emergency. People who are ALICE are not banked in a manner that allows them to be prepared for a rainy day. And that is certainly part of what we're seeing now driving the conversation after COVID. So our goal with this data as a United Way is to help people understand their communities better. And we want to engage business leaders and government leaders and nonprofit leaders to come together around solutions that help all of our ALICE households across the state move along a path to financial stability. ALICE is critical to our communities. ALICE are the workers who have emerged as the everyday heroes during the COVID-19 crisis, for example. Finally, ALICE is getting some of the attention they deserve from the folks who were at the grocery stores working at a time when many of us were hunkered down at home trying to figure out what was safe. ALICE was out working in the grocery stores, keeping the shelves stocked for us. ALICE are our lower paid nurses, assistants, and others who are headed out into the workforce every day to support the healthcare system. ALICE are our childcare workers who are taking care of children every day so that many of us can go out and earn a living to support the standard of living that we like for our families. So ALICE is essential to our communities, and we want to empower ALICE as we talk about ALICE in Pennsylvania. This is the overall number for our state. 24% of our households in Pennsylvania are ALICE, again, earning above the federal poverty level, not yet enough to provide for all their basic needs. And then another 13% of our population makes up the population who is actually qualified as impoverished by the federal definition. So the reason that this number is so large, and it has actually grown over the last 10 years or so, is that because overall the cost of the things that are essential to a household budget have increased at a rate that is far greater than either the increase in inflation or the increase in average weekly wages. So we're going to talk about things like cost drivers around healthcare, around childcare costs. About the only thing in an ALICE survival budget that has not increased at a rate greater than the rate of inflation is actually food. So that's the driver behind why this situation keeps getting worse for ALICE across the state and across the country. So I'm going to show you now what the ALICE budget looks like. And this first budget that I'm showing you is specific to York County. We have a survival budget that's geared for every county in the state based on local cost of living. And this is your survival budget. This is what I was referring to as the bare minimum. And there is a little bit of fluctuation here depending on how big your household is. But as you look across this chart, you can see the line items in the household budget. You can see then at the bottom what it would take for each of these household configurations to achieve the survival budget in terms of both annual and hourly earnings. I emphasized earlier, this is not a stable budget. This is a budget where you live one emergency away from some real significant financial hardship. I will tell you this is also an extremely conservative budget. I think if you're looking at the housing numbers for York County, you may think to yourself, wow, like I think it would be really hard to rent an apartment or to rent a home for those types of rates in our community. And there would be some variance in that based on whether you're looking at housing in your inner cities and older boroughs where the housing costs tend to be less expensive than they are in other areas of the community. So otherwise, to show you how conservative this budget is, the food budget is based entirely on the thrifty food budget for USDA, which is entirely reliant on going to the grocery store and buying a lot of ingredients that you're bringing home and then making for food preparation. No pre-prepared foods, no going out to eat in that budget. You'll see the technology budget here. That's actually the inclusion of the lowest cost cell phone that's available on the marketplace, according to Consumer Reports. That is because this day and age, everybody needs the opportunity to stay connected. Many ALICE workers have shift work. They have the need to be able to be very responsive if something changes in their work schedule. but there's nothing here for an internet connection. There's nothing here for cable. There's nothing here for entertainment. This is truly just the essentials. There's a little bit of a miscellaneous category here that's intended to capture potential cost overruns in the budget in any given month. The transportation is assuming that for just about every county in the state, mass transit is not a very viable option for a large portion of the population. Therefore, someone's going to have a used vehicle and some maintenance costs associated with that in order to get themselves back and forth to work and childcare and everywhere else they need to go on a daily basis. And the childcare here is a licensed setting. It's not a high quality setting, but it is a lower cost option for families who live on the ALICE survival budget. So this is a measure of what it takes to get by, but this is not an aspirational budget. The next budget is the aspirational budget. This is the household stability budget for York County, and this is sustainable in the modern economy by our definition. Here you have a little bit more of a little bit more generous standard of living. Certainly not extravagant by any means, but more generous, a little bit more elbow room in the housing, more room to spread people out across some additional bedrooms. If you have 2 children, for example, you have bedrooms that would be spread out for each of the children. A little bit more allowance here for food. When I say a little bit, you can go out to eat twice a month under this food budget. Most of us go out to eat much more than that. The technology budget increases somewhat. This does take into account low cost kind of basic internet connection in the household. And then other than that, you'll see transportation increasing a bit as well. And the healthcare costs have a stronger reliance here in this budget for at least one member of the household having an employer-sponsored healthcare plan. The other thing that's significantly different here is this budget includes the 10% savings commitment, which is that saving for a rainy day that helps ALICE when we all inevitably encounter some financial hardship. The savings commitment is what helps someone prepare so that they no longer are so susceptible to falling back into poverty when something unexpected happens. And you can see the differences in wages and earnings here across the various household configurations, with childcare and healthcare being a huge portion of the cost of these budgets. So I did want to point out that we have a website. It's www.uwp.org/ALICE. I skipped through that a little too quickly. There's the address for you. You can go there. We have an interactive map where you can look at the budgets for ALICE for York County, but interestingly, you can also drill down to the municipal level. So you'll be able to see where ALICE lives across York County. And I'm here to tell you, ALICE lives in every single municipality. That may surprise you. You will generally find higher density of our ALICE families around our cities and our older boroughs, as I mentioned earlier. But I like to go into community presentations and ask people to tell me what they think their more affluent municipalities are in their community, and they'll toss out a name, and inevitably there's a good ALICE proportion of population there, somewhere in the range of 15 to 18 or 20%, even in the most affluent communities. So ALICE is among us, and ALICE is important, and so we really want to focus on strategies to help ALICE advance towards financial stability. And that's part of what we do at United Way of Pennsylvania in partnership with our local members. We're focusing on the long-term solutions that help ALICE achieve financial stability. So things like access to affordable and reliable transportation and access to childcare. That's a huge issue now post-COVID, and it's frankly, it's the issue of the decision that every family has to make about what they feel safe doing with their children. Mix in school age uncertainty and what's going to happen as the school year gets back to normal or not, how much remote learning, how much in school learning, and then just in general, infant toddler access to childcare as well has been in short supply. Many of our areas of the state actually live in what's called a childcare desert. And before COVID, when the economy was really booming, our largest and even medium-sized businesses were talking to us and saying, you know what, I need workers, and I need to get my hands around how we help our workforce overcome the transportation barriers and the childcare barriers that help people get to work. So it has become a conversation about more than just, can you show up to work on time? Do you have the hard skills? And can you pass a drug test? These other things have become a major consideration in the health of our economy and the development of our workforce. Now we've experienced the major land shift of COVID, and a lot remains to be seen about how that will play out going forward. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Actually, now I'll talk about that. So Alice, the bottom line is all of these people who we knew were Alice before COVID, they were not prepared for this rainy day. Many of them lost work. Some of them lost work and have not returned to work. We have a lot of Alice workers who work in the restaurant industry, in the hospitality sector. Those are jobs that are lost, and our independent fiscal office projects that there are about 165,000 jobs that have been lost since March, which are not coming back anytime in the next 2 years. So there are a huge number of people who are left in a position where they're going to have to find new work. Now the supplemental federal unemployment compensation has expired and still in some flux in Congress about what's going to happen with that in the future. People are going to be facing some really tough financial challenges for the foreseeable future. And we're gearing up for that in our 211 work as well. 211 is a resource that United Way partners to make available to every Pennsylvanian, regardless of income. We're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We've got a lot of people calling 211 right now who are saying things like, gosh, I have never had to ask for help before, but here I am in this moment. I need food. I need help with my housing payments. So we are only on the crest of, unfortunately, a wave that we think is going to get a lot bigger as unemployment continues to expire for more individuals, as we see protections like a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures expiring at the state level. There's a lot of need coming down the pike that we haven't even seen today. On the positive side, as I noted earlier, Alice emerged as a hero of the pandemic, and we finally saw Alice achieve some of the recognition and appreciation that we believe is so overdue for people who are working every day as maintainers and helping to keep our communities safe and stable. And then we're focused a lot on what the access to childcare means for economic recovery. I don't know about you, but I know several moms who have made the decision to step out of the workforce because frankly right now is too difficult to figure out childcare, work from home, and keeping your kids safe and all those kinds of things. So there are those issues for families that have possibly the means to be able to make that decision to take one parent out of the workforce. But frankly, there's a lot of other challenges for people of lower and middle income as well, to make sure that as their employers are giving them the opportunity to come back to work, they feel they have a safe avenue for care and childcare that they can afford to make sure that they can get back to work. And then because of this loss of jobs that aren't coming back anytime soon, there is going to be a significant portion of the community that's going to need some reskilling in order to direct them to the next opportunity to earn a living. And here you have to balance kind of the short-term reskilling that may get you into an occupation of lower wage or comparable wage to what you were already earning versus the opportunity to go for other types of education, certificates, and whatever that might require an upfront investment at the very time you're experiencing the worst financial hardship of your life, but could present the greatest opportunity for you as you are trying to build your family's financial future. So there's a lot of complex challenges coming. It's very hard to project exactly what that looks like today. We actually have just launched a survey this week, which we would welcome any help to co-promote, which is designed to get out to any Pennsylvanian who feels they have been impacted by the pandemic. We're asking questions about health impacts and job impacts and how are they doing affording basic needs. How is access to childcare for their household if that's applicable? So we're collecting that data and planning to put together a report, an executive summary that we will then release this fall to help everybody understand at every level how Pennsylvanians are experiencing this pandemic and the economic consequences. And I think, frankly, the temptation, because so much of the economy arguably is psychological, the temptation is to brush past these things and move on and pretend that all is well. And we want to use the data and the Alice story to help make sure that as we're looking at how the unemployment rate recovers and how the GDP recovers, we're also looking at how people like Alice are faring in the economic recovery. just a few quick bits of data here that show increased needs. Normally in the period of about mid-March to May 31st, Pennsylvania 211 will hear from about 41,000 people who are looking for assistance with some basic need. During that same period of time this year, we handled contacts from approximately 59,000 people, which is a 43% increase overall. The most requested needs that we're hearing are food and housing assistance, temporary cash assistance, and help with utilities. Frankly, these are always the top needs at 211, but we're seeing an exponential increase now just because of the impacts of COVID-19. And I mentioned earlier that many people are now calling 211 because they're needing help for the first time. They don't know government programs. They don't have connections to social service agencies. They're coming to 211 and trying to figure out how they can get help in their community. So that is an overview of ALICE. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you have, or I would also defer, Anne, if there are any points that you would like me to call out from your knowledge of ALICE that I haven't talked about today, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate you sharing that impactful information with our members. I was wondering if you could give a little backstory on ALICE, where the report started, where Pennsylvania fell in the ranks of those states that really across the country adopted this information, invested in this information.
Yeah, that's good context. Thanks for bringing that out. We are part of a 21 state movement of ALICE states who have brought the ALICE report to their state, and we all follow the same methodology. We're all measuring the challenges and talking about the challenges with similar language. This is a project that started, I guess now we're looking about 12, maybe even getting close to 15 years ago. So Pennsylvania was one of the most recent comers to ALICE, but we are also involved in sort of a multi-state collaborative that's talking about policy, talking about how we communicate about ALICE, talk about how we continually strengthen our ability to accurately talk about these issues through continuous improvements in data that are just happening all the time. And in fact, as we do our next data refresh report, there's been some changes in methodology, which we think help tell an accurate story, but just going to be a little bit of a challenge to draw parallel conclusions from our old report to the new report. So, you know, as we move on, we want to keep tabs on this. We hope to see some improvement over time. This becomes incredibly powerful data to help United Way's bring partners to the table for solutions. And, you know, we're all in a bit of a tailspin right now. I think there's a lot of crisis buckled down on needs internal to our own organizations, but we are very eager to speak with any and all businesses and other leaders who want to take some time and kind of refocus on how we can drive recovery from COVID and an economic recovery that will hopefully put ALICE in a better position than they were before the pandemic.
Thank you, Kristen. We have a question from a member, and I think that, do you see, so does ALICE make any direct financial support to individuals, or does it act only as a referral service? And I think that this individual asking the question is really referring to 211, the 211 service that you mentioned. So the question is, does 211 make any direct financial support to individuals, or does it act only as a referral agency?
Yeah, so 211 is acting primarily as a referral agency. We do have a couple of local projects where 211 has more authority than that, but generally 211's job is to figure out who does have the resources and to have the best information about who's eligible for those resources and how to access those resources, so that when an individual with a need calls 211, we can get them directly to the place that has assistance. Now, I would also like to call to the forefront that the data, the ALICE data, has been used to set up different types of programs on a local level that may be targeting resources to the ALICE population in a way that was not previously, just based on understanding ALICE better. So, for example, we have a local United Way who set up a scholarship fund to help cover the cost of sports equipment or musical instruments or anything like that that helps a kid get engaged in extracurricular activities, which can have many, many benefits for the development of the child, preparing them for the workforce, helping with after school care, frankly. So that's an example. And we have other examples where local United Ways are working with partners to do solutions like this, targeted to people who are ALICE, who typically don't really qualify for a lot of government programs because their income is too high for government programs. Just as a snapshot on this, I really like this example. To qualify for a child care subsidy, you have to earn at 200% or below of the federal poverty level. If you get the child care subsidy, then you can keep that subsidy till you get to 235% of the federal poverty level. But even the ALICE threshold, the survival threshold itself, for a family with a household with children, their income level is typically something like 260% of the federal poverty level. So you're marginally above where you're qualified for child care assistance, but you can't really afford child care the way you should be able to afford child care. So that's why looking at ability to find some flexible means to assist ALICE in any given community is really important, because they need some help. They don't need a lot of help, but they don't qualify for government programs generally either.
Thank you, Kristen. Another question from a member. Thanks, Kristen, for your leadership with the United Way family. The ALICE data is indeed powerful, especially knowing that ALICE is our Rotarians, employees, family members, and neighbors. What are we doing to advocate with our legislature to educate them on ALICE? And is United Way of Pennsylvania taking a leadership role with issues like minimum wage and social service benefits?
Yes, so we have focused our advocacy around access to childcare. We have focused our advocacy around 211 as a support for ALICE. We have focused advocacy around workforce development, which includes access to transportation, as we talked about earlier, and we're getting deeper into housing issues right now. We have not taken a position on minimum wage as a network, and that is primarily because as you look at the ALICE survival budgets, even when you scan across the minimum hourly wage that would take to achieve the survival threshold, in many cases, any minimum wage increase that's been talked about in Pennsylvania is still not sufficient. And then regardless of that, we are looking at this really tough long-term curve of household essentials increasing in cost at a far greater rate than wages or anything else. So we feel that by focusing on these other workforce development strategies, we want to take some of these families who sit on the cusp and kind of guide them through and put them in a position where they're launched so that they have come to a place where they have a career trajectory or something that's putting them in a position to keep increasing their income while the other costs of household essentials are increasing as well. So that's how we have approached this work. We've also, frankly, really approached this from an educational standpoint. It is easy to get disconnected from what it costs to survive right now. We've actually had a number of United Ways who have been in conversations with businesses who are having some trouble with retention of workforce and were not understanding why they were well-intentioned giving pay raises and losing employees. And sometimes it was a matter of that employee lost a child care subsidy, so the increase in pay didn't offset that, and they're deciding to go work somewhere else. If you haven't had to pay for childcare in a while, you certainly probably would not understand how expensive it really is. So giving people this standard to kind of look at and go, okay, and then you can think through how this compares with the budget that your household has to survive on, whatever that looks like across the way. And if you're further above the survival or the stability budget, you can see what it takes just to get by. And that's powerful to counteract a narrative which has tended to focus on all you got to do is go to work every day, you'll be fine. But we know for many Pennsylvanians that is not the case. So to be able to have some hard data to counteract that narrative, that this is not a matter of personal responsibility and doing the right thing. This is a matter of shifting the balance to be able to make sure that ALICE can survive and thrive.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for bringing that research and that all-important hard data to our Commonwealth and to our community so we can combat that narrative. And thank you for sharing your focus areas of access to child care, 211, workforce development, transportation, housing, and education. I'm going to combine two questions from Rotarians. So who would be your best partners in helping to advance this work in our community? And what do you see as the greatest need of ALICE in our communities?
Well, that's a good one. I honestly think the biggest and best partners that can help us get the farthest are actually business. And that's not just business investing in the charitable sector. Frankly, I think we ought to innovate more around business partnership to support ALICE. And this can very much be done in a way that helps serve the business interests of the business too. This is not just charity for charity's sake. This is supporting programs and ways of getting people trained, stable, and recognizing that this is not just the skills to do the job. This is all the things that happen at home to make that impact someone's ability to be a good employee. And if they're facing, you know, possible eviction at home, it's really hard to focus when you get to work. So being willing to take a broader look at all the issues that impact a worker in a business setting and investing in innovative solutions that help the workforce, not only from the standpoint of an employee, but from the standpoint of overall financial stability. So I think business is the most untapped potential. Government is certainly an important partner, but especially here as we go into a period of what uncertain economic decline, the first place that's going to run out of money is government. And some businesses are doing okay. I recognize many businesses are not doing well. But for those who are doing okay, I think there's a real opportunity to make some significant impact in communities through the partnerships that you choose to select. And you have the ability to shop around in your community and figure out who's doing the kind of work that you want to partner up with and support, and who can scale to do that with you. And United Way is a great resource to help understand that as well. So did I miss half the question, Anne?
No, I think the other part was the greatest need of ALICE, and I think you covered that with the workforce issues that are surrounding that. So this one's a difficult one. Kristen, you've done a great job so far, but Rotarians are committed to service above self, and they're people of action. So that's reflected in this question. So this is asking you, because these are, you know, systemic, long, entrenched issues and challenges for a significant percentage of our community and our neighbors in need, long-range solutions to the problems and the challenges that you're sharing. So what would be, what are some long-range tactics, strategies, and solutions to these challenges of our neighbors in need?
Well, I think, I don't know if this will sound trite. I've been doing public policy work my whole career, but I would argue that we have to increase awareness and empathy from the top down, from the leadership of our government at every level. And some elected officials understand ALICE quite well. They have lived as ALICE in the past, but by the time you get elected, you're pretty far from being ALICE. So to advocate for ALICE, to use the data to represent the real challenges that are facing ALICE, so that at the very least, we are not implementing policies that push ALICE backwards, right? There are things we can do that will proactively support ALICE. One thing that we want to pursue in Pennsylvania is a state level earned income tax credit. That is a very effective pro-work, anti-poverty tool that is in the tool belt of the federal government's tax code. We would like to see that replicated at the state level. That's not going to be a quick lift. It may require some tinkering with the Constitution, depending who you ask. But we think that would be incredibly important for ALICE. The EITC provides a once a year infusion through a tax credit of some cash back into the pocket of working Pennsylvanians. And frankly, we've gathered the data through United Way Vita sites. We know that money gets spent on paying off the credit card, fixing the furnace, whatever the thing was that happened over the course of the year. that represents a household need. That money doesn't really get used for taking the kids on vacation or anything like that. It gets infused back in the economy immediately to meet the needs of a household. So that's a longer range policy strategy. But my original point was really that as we're learning about candidates and we are seeing how they formulate their policy agendas, if we can all keep Alice close at heart and advocate for Alice to be represented and to be planned for and not overlooked, because again, the tendency is to look at unemployment rate, look at GDP, and then we pat ourselves on the back and tell ourselves the economy is doing great. But the economy is not doing great by the standards of many working Pennsylvanians. And this is frankly an issue where racial diversity comes right in the door, because if you are Black or you are Hispanic, you are much more likely to be Alice than a white Pennsylvanian. So thinking about policy implications for racial equity will also help advance the plight of every Alice across the state.
Thank you, Kristen. That awareness, empathy, and advocacy. So that's how that we can, as individuals, help as well. Next question is, how significantly is your budget being impacted by the pandemic? And what is your long-term projection on returning your revenue to a level where you can provide the community support that continues to be impactful?
Yes, so our budget is very different from a local United Way's budget. We are a statewide membership organization, essentially, for local United Ways. We do not compete with United Ways to raise money from the public. That's totally up to our members. So the budget for my organization is constituted of some membership dues, some fee-for-service contracts, and some government support that we get for 211. We also get some foundation support for some of our advocacy work. So we are being very cautious right now. I am preparing a flat, no dues increase budget for next year. The big question mark around our budget, frankly, is how many of our United Ways will be able to continue to be members of United Way of Pennsylvania, because they're experiencing the declines locally from the economic impacts of COVID. I do want to emphasize this is a mixed bag. I think that United Way stepped up in a big way across the state to help communities respond to COVID. Donors responded to that well. A lot of donors contributed to local COVID response funds to deal with emergencies. So I think United Way now knows, or at least has a foot in the door with more donors than they did before the pandemic. And they're looking for opportunities to build those relationships and hope that they will convert into long-term support for United Way. But there's really no way to plan for that. And I know that some of our local members have shifted to shorter-term community investments to offset financial risk. They are planning for reduced campaigns. And there has been some economic analysis at the state level, which was interesting to me, that showed they're trying to draw conclusions based on the last Great Recession. And we're pointing out that the major difference between from pandemic to the last Great Recession is that there have been so many federal resources infused into states via the CARES Act dollars, via the economic impact payments, via the unemployment compensation, that through the first part of this, we have essentially seen kind of a neutral impact, because there have been almost enough federal dollars coming in the door to offset what's estimated in terms of loss of compensation for people who lost work. That's how it works out macroeconomically. Of course, it's very different for individual families. But again, we're going to see that tail off now very quickly. So I am concerned we might be living on a little bit of a bubble of optimism right now that doesn't reflect how most people are going to be feeling as we move later into the fall and towards the holidays. So we are riding certainly a wave of wonderful generosity right now, and we hope that that continues. But the fact of the matter is that finances are probably going to get more difficult for more individuals, which is going to have an impact on their charitable contributions. And we're thinking very pragmatically at a state level and a local level as a United Way network about what that's going to mean for just a ton of uncertainty for at least the next 18 months.
Thank you, Kristen. This will be our last question. And this goes back to the earned incomes tax credit. the work that you're focusing on. We do have several legislators that are members of our club, and I'm wondering if you could expand, are there other states that have forged this work or work in this area?
Yeah, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I want to say there's at least 20 or possibly half the states in the country have implemented an EITC of some kind. Many have also implemented a child tax credit at the state level. So yeah, we've got some other models to look at. Some of them have followed very closely on the federal EITC and how that's modeled. Others have kind of limited it a bit more, but we have some good information from the National Conference of State Legislatures kind of breaking down what other states have done, and can use that as the research to inform our efforts in Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much, Kristen. The last time you were in York County was February of this year, before COVID was really on our mind. And we appreciate you joining us at that point in time at the Valencia Ballroom to award the Keystone Spirit of United Way Award for 2019 to fellow Rotarian Bob Pullo, just the fourth in the state to earn that. So thank you for coming back to York. Our club meets every Wednesday. You're welcome to join us in the future. And Rotary supports education and literacy as well as United Way. So instead of a gift, we have a book that we ask our speaker to sign the book plate for. And thank you for sharing that this little engine that could, and obviously you are a big engine that can for our state and advocating for our neighbors in Alice and our underserved population. So understand your dad used to read this to you, so we'll ask you to sign a Rotary book plate, and this book will go to our United Way partner agency, the YWCA, and for their child care center. So thank you very much, Kristen. Keep up the great work. Thank you for Living United. Rotarians and guests, our program next week will be provided by Dr. Jane Sutton, Professor of Communications Arts and Scientist Emeritus at Penn State, who will discuss the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment for the women's right to vote. Hope you will join us then. And our closing song on the Rotary stage is by a gentleman that used to perform at the York Fair. Unfortunately, the fair grandstand will be dim this year, but many of you may have seen him years ago, and this is Garth Brooks. Hope you enjoy Friends in Low Places. Have a great day and a safe week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.
Blame it all on my words. I showed up in boots and ruined your black tie fair. The last one to know, the last one to show. I was the last one you thought you'd see there. And I saw the surprise and the fear in his eyes when I took his glass of champagne. I toasted you, said, honey, we may be through, but you'll never hear me complain. 'Cause I got friends in all places where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away. And I'll be okay. I'm not big on social graces, think I slip on down to the oasis, so I've got a friend in low places, yeah. Well, I guess I was wrong. I just don't belong. Then I've been there before. Everything's alright. I'll just say goodnight and I'll show myself to the door. Hey, I didn't leave to cause a big scene. Just give me an hour and then, well, I'll Now, I am a long way from where I am from. So, I would understand if maybe you guys know nothing about another verse that might go with the song. So some of you do know about the dreaded third verse of the song. Very good. But now the real test, Ireland. Do you know the words to that third verse? Because we're not gonna sing the third verse. You guys are gonna sing the third verse. All right? I'll get you started, but you're on your own after that. They like it loud back home too, just in case. Here it goes.